Hey everyone, welcome back to my garden. Today we have episode 4 of How to Grow Our Tomato series, and things are off to a good start, guys. Our blue-green Wagner over here, the transplant is doing really well. It's finally putting on a couple of side shoots, so it's finally going to get a little bit bushier for me, and that's what I really want. It is getting a little bit of some height. I've been kind of clipping off the flowers that have been coming on, as you see an example over here. Super miniature flowers growing in, so make sure to clip those flowers, guys. It's definitely not time for flowering for that size of a tomato plant. And the root system looks super healthy. You could see it's really white. It looks really nice, kind of like a really tight spider web. And I got a nice little cherry tomato plant transplant to the right of it, you could see over here. And that's also flowering. I might as well leave those flowers right now because this is just a random little extra plant that I just put on the side. Can't hurt, guys. A little extra tomato plant doesn't hurt. If you get extra tomatoes out of it, why not? And you can see those root systems look pretty good too. And the mini bell is still putting on tomatoes every day. I keep seeing new tomatoes popping in. And this is a nice little black Vernissage transplant that I just kind of had to take involuntarily, that broke on the 11th of the month. You could see right over here an example. As soon as I put it into this deep water culture system over here, I was trying to bend it down a little bit to get it underneath the tomato trellis over here, just to kind of save on some space, and I completely snapped it in half right over there. So it looks like a pretty decent cut. It's nice and clean for the most part. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna transplant this into a nice little rock wool cube and turn that into a second tomato plant. No sense in throwing that piece away. The mother plant is definitely going to recover. That cut is just going to heal up like nothing happened at all. But I might as well get a second tomato plant out of it right now. And being that this is the black Vernissage, I only have the one plant right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use natural organic honey over here, guys. I'm going to show you how to use that as a natural rooting hormone. You don't need any of those chemicals that they sell you. For the most part, the majority of the things that you could do in the garden, you could do it organically and naturally. So that's how I like to do it as much as I can. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm just going to soak a nice little rock wool cube, keep that soaking for a little bit while I'm going to put a little honey on the side. And excuse the mess, this is right before I was cleaning up my system and breaking everything down. So I'm just going to try to pour a little honey on the side over here in the spoon. And of course I spill it because why not? It's no big deal, guys. It's gardening. You're gonna make a mess. So what you want to do really is just grab your cutting. Any plant will do good, guys. You can use any plant this way. This method should work perfectly well. And you just want to coat the cutting in the honey. It's gonna act as a natural rooting hormone, like I mentioned. And the great thing about the honey is it's not going to allow any bacteria or like mold or anything like that to spread, because it's a natural insecticide as well as antifungal, antimicrobial properties should be off the honey. So there shouldn't be anything like mold or bacteria growing on it, which is really what I want. So you can see the cutting. Make sure you don't push the cutting all the way through the bottom. Just kind of keep it right there, somewhere in the middle. And you can see that the honey is just right there all around. And what you want to do is make sure that you're going to cover up the rock wool cube, the top of it. This way you prevent any algae growth from starting to set in. It's really important to try to prevent algae from your system, guys. Not only does algae steal the oxygen from your reservoir and your container, but which kind of deprives your plants and makes them starve, but it also that's a food source for fungal gnats. So keep that in mind, guys. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna keep I'm gonna take a net cup over here, throw the little cutting inside over here just to be able to pour some clay pebbles right on top, and keep that nice and covered. And that should just be enough until the root system pops up from underneath at the bottom, at which point I'm gonna throw it into one of my glass jars that I have just laying around. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna keep this thing nice and moisturized. I'll keep watering it every couple of days as it needs. And until the root system pokes out, I'm not gonna put it into a jar. And there we have it, guys. Just as simple as that. Using honey as a natural rooting hormone works great. And as you see, basically about a week later, or so. I showed you the cutting, how it looked. A couple more leaves were cut off the side, but for the most part it's looking really healthy, and I definitely started noticing root systems were starting to develop. And looking over here to the right, guys, the cherry tomato plant and the black vernissage has exploded in growth. These plants are well over 2 feet tall, both of them, as well as about 2 feet apart. You could see that the plants are just looking really good. This is the blue-green Wagner over here that we got. Unfortunately, that's all I have left of the blue-green Wagner. The rest of the plant had died off. Thankfully, I was able to save the cutting, so when that gets a little bit bigger, I will definitely be taking another cutting off of that, just to make sure to keep the life cycle going. And as you see, I added a second station over here to the right, just for the tomato plants over here, because they take up so much space. If I keep it in my station over here, my main station to the left, it would just take up about 75% of that grow area. So instead of wasting all that space, I figured, why, I have all these parts on the side that I wasn't using, why not build this quick station up real quick and just throw it up to the right over here, which is exactly what I did. And you could see that the cherry tomato plant is looking really good, guys. From the last update that I showed you, it was looking scrawny and small and tiny, and it was just suffering so badly. It constantly was running out of nutrients and running out of water. This plant must have almost dried out probably 3 or 4 times. I'm super happy it did not die on me. Like I promised you guys, this thing is a monster in producing tomatoes. Look at how many flowers. Every single place I look, I am just seeing tomato flowers developing, and this thing is getting bushier and bigger and more compact. And as you see, even going down the plant, it's starting to thicken out and get a little bit more compact and tight, which is exactly what I want. I want to be able to maximize how many tomatoes I'm getting off of my tomato plants over here. And I'm definitely going to be taking more cuttings, because this cherry tomato plant is by far my favorite. The flavor is excellent, and it just constantly produces and produces. It's definitely going to be producing for me for quite a long time. I'm going to try to keep this plant alive for several months if possible, but you'll see as we kind of grow, and as the episodes go on, just how healthy this plant is going to grow and how big it's going to get. I'm going to try to, I think, probably cap it at this height. Maybe I'll let it get a little bit taller, since I do have a little bit space. But for the most part, I think that's probably as high as I want it to get. And I never mentioned before, but for my air pump, I keep the level all the way down. And let's open up the cherry tomato plant, take a look at what the root system looks like. You can see it's looking pretty healthy. That's all brand new growth right over there. It had so many roots that were growing that I just had to unfortunately compact on the inside of those clay pebbles over here. So the inside those clay pebbles is packed with roots as well. And all those roots that I showed you was all new growth since I planted it in this deep water culture system. And the black vernissage, man oh man, this plant is a beauty. I thought this thing was gonna die on me a long time ago, and as you see, it just kept alive, it kept on going. This thing has been doing really well. Same thing, I put a tomato trellis over it just to give it a little bit more support and keep it a little bit more healthier. You could see just at the very bottom over here, a couple of these leaves have dried off a little bit. That's most likely because it's the closest area next to the fan over here, so it's probably a little bit cooler than the rest of the plant, so those leaves probably suffered a little bit. Your plants do not want to have wind on them 24/7, so make sure you keep a little schedule going, and your fans are not blowing directly on your plants and just blowing around them. That's much better for the air circulation. And you could see that this plant is just super tight. It's also producing flowers, but nowhere near to the capacity as the cherry tomato plant, which is, kind of what I expected. But still, I am not complaining, guys. I would say probably maybe 4 or 5 sets of flowers that are developing currently right now. And it looks like it has just about maybe 3 gallons of water. It started out with about 4, so it looks like both containers drink about 1 gallon each. In about, I would say, how long has it been? Maybe about 2 weeks now, something like that. Or Saturday would be 2 weeks, actually. So you can see the root system here has developed as well. The white roots over here, that's all new growth. All this yellow roots over here, that's the existing growth that was previously growing. I kept this system going just like this because I had an extra lid, so all I did was just cut out a hole in that lid to fit the 3-inch nut cup. This way I didn't want to disturb those root systems too much. This planter was already kind of having a little bit of a rough start, so figured why not disturb the roots. Let's just kind of cut a new hole and set it in its new home. So you could see that once I put both these plants, the cherry tomato plant and the black vernissage, in the deep water culture system, both plants exploded in growth, guys, and they're doing really well. Both plants started putting out a ton of side shoots. That was the first thing that I began to notice, and they just kept on producing and kept on growing really tall. Really quickly I ran out of space, so I didn't have a choice but to build up this new cage over here that I have to the right. But honestly, I'm really happy that I did, because it freed up so much space that I have behind that. And you could see kind of how I set it up over here using zip ties, and it was sliding around left and right. So using the zip ties kind of stabilized the grow lights a little bit more, and it doesn't slide around too much. And I kind of put together pieces from 2 or 3 different different greenhouses that I had. One was a grow tent that I took those white bars, another one, and the other 2 I think were just my 2 original cages that I had. Excuse me. So you could see both plants are just doing really well, guys. And I couldn't really ask for better growth than what I'm getting at the moment. I'm thinking about maybe just adding in possibly one more fan, just because things are getting a little bit tight. Summer is kind of kicking up a little bit around the corner. It is getting a lot hotter. Temperatures are reaching in the high 80s now. So it is getting really hot inside my grow space. Also, I recommend, guys, if you are growing indoors, although it might be a good idea to open the windows just to get, some cool air, it's not a great idea for climate control, and you might get infestations for like aphids and things like that might get in your grow system. So a better way to cool things down would definitely be using grow fans. That's definitely one of my recommendations if you guys want to do that. But you could see, for the most part, like I mentioned, all these side shoots are starting to finally grow in, and the black vernissage is going to get a lot bushier than it is currently at the moment. So I'm not too worried, guys. Now that the both plants are finally in flowering stage, I'm thinking about upping up the reservoir and the nutrients. Once the nutrients run dry, I'm going to increase the amount of nutrients that I'm adding to it. I'll show you guys how I do that a little bit later when it's time. And you can see right over here, both plants are well over 2 feet tall, about 25-26 inches now, and I couldn't ask for more, guys. If you liked the episode, please show me some love, hit that thumbs up, post any messages or comments down below.